Hi, my name is Allison Neiley, and this is my observing myself as a critical reader in ENG201. I titled this presentation Reading with Purpose because I think throughout the semester I learned to not just read for academic reasons, but also read for my own personal enjoyment and in social settings such as the book group. While this course helped me improve as a critical reader, it also helped me learn to respond to my reading and express my opinions while reading with my classmates and my peers. I learned to do this through the reader response theory. Here are some examples of my reader response to The Kite Runner and the things they carried. I discussed reading strategies that I used to help me truly understand the text while reading. One of the most helpful things that I learned doing this reader response assignment was about cultural studies and understanding the culture in Afghanistan. Reader response theory helped me understand the differences between culture in Afghanistan and the culture we have in America. Prior to reading The Kite Runner, I did not know much about Afghan culture and was surprised by a lot of the things I read in the text. I didn't understand the power dynamics, prejudice, and discrimination shown throughout characters in the story. This led me to do my own research about the Hazaras and the Pashtuns. Reader response not only helped me understand the text while reading it on my own, but helped me contribute to class discussions. Having my personal thoughts that I experienced while reading written down prepared me to give my response when the topics were brought up in class. Reader response also encouraged me to begin reading critically. I believe one of the best critical analyses that I did throughout the semester was on The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. Here I discussed conflict, internal and external, visual imagery, humor, illusion, and characterization. This critical analysis is when I first began to understand the difference between direct and indirect characterization. I learned the importance of visual imagery in text, and how humor can be used to express how characters are feeling, even in a dark setting like the Vietnam War. One thing that was portrayed very well in The Things They Carried was external and internal conflict. This story taught me how internal conflict can lead to external behaviors. As the semester continued, I learned how reading strategies can help us read passages critically. These are some annotations that I made while reading The Things They Carried, The Women, and The Kite Runner. Throughout the semester, I used many different reading strategies, such as active reading, rereading, slowly reading, looking up words that I didn't know, underlining, circling, and highlighting parts of a passage, writing questions in the margins, and noticing imagery. One thing I found myself frequently annotating were cases of repetition. In my annotations of The Things They Carried, you can see that I marked repetition about how the characters' personality traits were described in the beginning of the story. The Things They Carried also used repetition when explaining the weight of items carried by the soldiers. The story begins by explaining the weight of physical items carried by the soldiers before transitioning to how those physical items are similar to the mental baggage carried by the soldiers as well. While physical tools such as annotations can help us become a better critical reader, we can also use digital tools and applications to help further our understanding. One digital tool that we used during the semester was the book group website. This slide shows the historical context page and some of the blog posts that I made for our digital website. I think that this digital tool helped me improve the most as a critical reader. I was able to display my analysis in a clean, organized, and social setting with my book group. I found that being able to read what my group members wrote helped me gain a better understanding of the text. This also helped me prepare for our book group discussion. Analyzing text digitally is something I will continue to do in other classes. This is a critical analysis I did of The Things They Carried in English class, right next to an analysis I did of a passage in psychology. The psychology textbook contains many terms that I don't understand. Instead of just ignoring those terms and trying to continue understanding the reading, I now stop and look up the terms because it makes the rest of the reading easier and more efficient. The passages in English and passages in psychology are sometimes quite similar. They tell stories about topics that I don't have very much prior knowledge on. But by using the reading strategies we learned in English, such as looking up words I don't know, reading slowly, rereading, and using active reading, I could perform a critical analysis of the passages we read in psychology. The things I've learned in English this semester I've already begun applying in other classes. Although reading strategies have improved my abilities as a critical reader, I also faced challenges throughout the semester. The primary challenge I had at the beginning of the semester was reading actively. I had trouble understanding the text and staying focused on what I was reading. Although this was frustrating at first, when I began annotating and asking questions in the margins of the text, I found that I was way more engaged in what I was reading. Another thing I struggled with was staying caught up with what we were reading in class. I would find myself falling behind and procrastinate until the night before I needed to read the text. As we near the end of the semester, I began creating a reading schedule, reading parts of books every night instead of waiting until the night before to start my reading. The third challenge I faced this semester was identifying indirect versus direct characterization. Although I struggled with this throughout the semester, one thing that helped me eventually begin to understand was talking to my book group members about direct and indirect characterization in The Women by Kristen Hanna. Although these challenges helped me improve as a critical reader, my most memorable experience with literature in this class is hearing stories from Professor Giattano about the Vietnam War. Although I might not remember everything from this class in a few years, the stories that Professor Giattano told will stick with me for the rest of my life. I went from knowing so little about the Vietnam War at the beginning of the semester to being truly invested and interested in the stories of those who experienced it. Someday, I want to visit the wall with all the names of people who passed away during the Vietnam War. Although this was certainly the most memorable experience I had with literature in this class, my aha moment was when we did the book group assignment. This is one of the only books that I found myself truly intrigued by. I was always reading past the assigned number of pages purely for my own enjoyment. I found myself looking forward to classes where we would meet with the book group because I wanted to discuss the ideas I had while reading with my peers. The final blog post, The Novel and Me, shows how much I truly enjoyed reading this book and discussing it with my classmates. Being interested in what I was reading drastically improved my ability as a critical reader. My annotations were far more meaningful as I was truly invested in what would happen to the characters in the story. I've come so far as a critical reader since the beginning of the semester, and I'm excited to see how these skills apply to other classes in my future. These are my citations. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.